Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. How y'all doing out there? I hope we all having a blessed Sabbath. We're going to get off into this children's lesson real quick. We dealing with the Kingdom series still. Today we still dealing with the Northern Kingdom. We're going to deal with King Omri. All right, King Omri, who is Ahab's father. All right, we're going to see how he rose to power and how he died. All right, a lot of the kings in the north, because of their evil, they were not having long spans in their reign, so they would actually be put to death, because of the wickedness, right? So we're gonna get into King Omri, who is Ahab's father, but first we're gonna go off into the Ten Commandments, okay? All right, I hope we're having a blessed Sabbath. I hope that we are taking care of ourselves throughout this pandemic still, unfortunately, and ultimately just having our spirit, keeping ourselves in the holy ruach. And I want to say bless you all, okay? All right, so first with the Ten Commandments. First, let me see how my sound is. Make sure the sound is right. Real quick, let me check on this sound. If anybody's watching, please type in and let me know how my sound is. One second. Shabbat shalom. Can you tell me real quick how my sound is? And then we'll go for it. All right, somebody said our sound is good. Okay, our sound is good. All right, so we're going to go ahead. All right, so Ten Commandments. All right, so first and foremost, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before me. What is considered another god? Clothes. What else? Toys. Yourself. Let me ask you something about yourself. How can you yourself be another God outside of the Most High?
By wearing good-looking clothes every day, and you start worshiping it.
Absolutely. You start worshiping. So yourself, you can, one of the ways you can idolize yourself is by through clothes, right? And so if you start to idolize those things and you start to worship those things more than you reverence and fear the Most High, then that becomes your God. That's how you can yourself become your own God outside of the Most High. So that's idolatry, right? So you can become your own God by worshiping yourself through nice clothes, nice house, nice this, because you worshiping those things and you saying, hey, I did these things, when the Most High is giving you the ability to acquire all of those things, right? That's good. You should not make for yourself an idol. You should not make for yourself an idol. What is considered an idol? Name some things that would be considered an idol, like something, physically that we could make an idol. Name some of those things.
Buddha statue,
Like a Buddha statue, right? So, man, what else?
fish heads,
Yeah, fish heads, right? What else?
and
And a lion head, something like that. Like different animals that you may carve and worship, right? So let me read this. I guess I got to start reading this out of the law so we can better understand. Because, of course, this chart doesn't necessarily give us the full understanding to this commandment here, right? So let's read that out of the law. So this is Exodus 20, and I'll even start at verse 3. You have no other mighty ones against my face. So that's what we just went into. You have no other mighty ones against my face. A mighty one is a God. I'm reading out of the Hallelujah scriptures. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image. So what you just named, like a fish head, or you had named like a lion head, you name like a Buddha statue, something like that, right? You do not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of that which is in the Shamayim above. That's the heavens above. So think about like people try to make an effort to make a Jesus piece, right? But that's you making an effort to make something that's from the heavens above, like an angel or something like that, or a sun or a moon, stuff like that, right? Or any likeness of that which is in the Shamayim above, or which is in the earth beneath, like animals, which you just named, like a lion, or which is in the waters under the earth, like a fish head. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. So that's the other part to that law. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the wickedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing kindness to thousands to those who love me and guard my commandments. Right? So that's that whole law, right? That we're not supposed to make those things our idols, right? So those lion heads or whatever you carve and make is not good to worship them as well. And it's because Yahuwah is a jealous El, right? Yahuwah is a jealous El. He don't want you worshiping other gods. That's idolatry. He is responsible for bringing us out of the land of Egypt. He will be responsible for bringing us out of our captivity today. Okay? All right, I'm going to keep that open because just in case I want to go back into that. You shall not misuse the name of Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall not misuse the name of Yahuwah your Elohim. Now, they got this, they misinterpreting this right here. This is not what this is talking about. It's not talking about you being in traffic yelling at somebody because they cut you off in a turning lane. It's not talking about that. What it's talking about is the misuses of his name in regards to what? Give me some examples.
someone tell you about the news, but you say it's a lie, but they said, I swear to,
Mm-hmm.
but it is false.
It's false. So somebody try to tell you, they try to convince you that something is true, and they swear in Yahuwah's name that it's true, but yet and still it ends up being false. That is definitely a misusage of his name. How about not keeping vows? All right, not keeping vows. You make a vow to do something in Yahuwah's name. When you do that, you're not upholding, you number one, using his name in vain. You're not upholding your word. And Yahuwah expects us to uphold our word, right? All right, so that's very important. That's good. That's very important. Let me just read this real quick. This is Leviticus. Just to add on to that. 19 and verse 12. It says, and do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of Yahuwah your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. So do not swear falsely by my name. So it's directly saying what you just described right there. All right, this is Leviticus 19 and verse 12. Do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. Right? So just to let you know that Yahuwah is serious about his name. We're not to defile his name. All right? All right. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. All right. How can we keep the Sabbath day holy?
Rest.
How can we rest? What else?
Read our Bible.
We can read our Bible. What else?
Congregate.
We can congregate. Yeah. What else?
Watch VeggieTales.
We can watch VeggieTales and different cartoons or movies or shows, whatever have you, that pertain to, the stories of the Bible, right? That's how we can keep the Sabbath day holy, all right, by doing those things. But the main thing we want to do is have a holy convocation, okay? We're going to have a holy convocation, all right? And the law talks about that, all right? So this is Leviticus 23. I'll start at verse 1. This is Leviticus 23 and 1. Then it says, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you are to proclaim as Kodesh gatherings, my appointed times are these. 6 days work is done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a Kodesh gathering. That means a holy gathering, a holy convocation, right? All right, this is the Sabbath. This is the weekly Sabbath that we come to gather on every day. Now, if you read this whole chapter, it's talking about our feast days, but it starts with the Sabbath, all right? A Kodesh gathering. You do not work. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings, all right? It's a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. The Sabbath of rest is a Kodesh gathering. If you read it in the KJV, in the King James Version Bible, it'll be a holy convocation. It's a holy gathering, all right? A holy, so a holy assembly. So we're supposed to come together on this day and worship Yahuwah, right? Yeah, yes, of course you can get rest and rest, weekly. But, we're supposed to come together on this Sabbath, okay? It's a Kodesh gathering. All right, so we, supposed to do that. So we can also, so the coming together on that day is very important, as I just showed you. All right, but those things you can do too before you come together. Some people don't have a big assembly that they go and gather with. They might only be able to gather with their family for that time. So you gather with your family, as long as you keeping that day set apart to worship Yahuwah. But if you got somebody to go gather with, it will be best for you to go and gather with that particular congregation. We gather with the chosen seed. Some people don't have a gathering like this. You know what I mean? So they may have their family that's all believers, and they come together on the Sabbath, and this is their day that they set apart. They read the word and they talk about the word, right? Okay. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. All right, now, even though we're not in the land, but we can still honor our father and mother. How can we honor our father and mother? Listen to their instructions. What else?
Give them gifts.
You can give them gifts to show you that you value them and that you love them. What else?
Not giving them a fallen name, fallout name on your parents.
I know what you're trying to say. So let's clean that up. You want to keep them with a good name. All right. You don't want to give them a bad name because you have a falling out. Right. Make sure you say that. So say that. So you don't want to give them a bad name because you have a falling out, because ultimately you still love your parents and they still love you. Y'all had a disagreement. It does not mean that they don't love you. You know what I mean? You may disagree with them, and sometimes parents can be wrong. but they are the authority in the situation, in your relationship. So they're your mother, they're your father. You are still to respect them and honor them. Okay. So that's something that you definitely want to do. Okay. All right. Definitely honoring our father and mother. We can honor them by giving them gifts. We can honor them by keeping them with a good name. All right. Because you have a falling out does not mean you can go and slander your parents and talk bad about them. All right. It's okay to talk about your problems, but listen, that's if you have somebody that's a close friend that you can trust, but you don't want to necessarily go and talk bad about your parents. You know what I mean? Because you have a disagreement. All right? That's what honoring our father and mother is about. Even through times where we are at disagreements, we give them a good name. We keep them with a good name because ultimately they have you. You are an extension of them. All right? You shall not murder. You shall not murder. Shalom, Maki. You shall not murder. All right. So what is murder? Describe what murder is according to what is murder? Just according to the Bible. Go ahead. I'll get it. Go ahead.
Think about your mind and, like what he said, and try to get a weapon.
Yeah.
And go ahead and murder.
Okay. So basically, if somebody say something to you that you don't like, and you go and you get a weapon and try to and do harm to him, that is murder, right? Mm-hmm. But what if that same person that goes and get the weapon try to go and do something to that person, the person that said something out of line to him, and the person that said something out of line, he ended up killing him out of that's self-defense, right? Because he's defending himself. This, like in regards to me and you. So if you don't like what I say and you go get a weapon for me, and I overtake you because you came at me with a weapon, what I did would not be considered murder. It would be considered self-defense because you approached me with the weapon. You see what I'm saying? And I'm allowed to defend myself according to the word of Yah, right? Okay. So that's self-defense. Okay. So, you should not commit adultery. You should not commit adultery, right? So what is adultery? Yep, that's committing adultery. And what else? Now that's one aspect of it. What's the other aspect for the man where he commits adultery? You remember? We haven't went over it a lot of times, but we should. It's my fault. But do you remember?
When men sneak out his marriage, and when a man sleep with another man's wife.
That's adultery, right there. When a man sleep with another man's wife. So that man that sleeps with another man's wife, he could either be married or he can be single. It doesn't matter in that sense because he's dealing with another man's wife. That part where he deals with another man's wife is adultery. It's not adultery on him. He's committing fornication on his own wife if he's married, but and that's fornication, and that's bad. But the adultery would be when he deals with another man's wife. Okay? That would be adultery when he deals with another man's wife. You know what I'm saying? So I just want you to understand that those are the two scenarios where a man could be considered an adulterer. Now, what about a woman?
When a woman sneaks out of her marriage, when a woman sneaks out of her marriage, she goes with another man
Mm-hmm.
that committed adultery.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yep. That's good. You should not steal. You should not steal. So, in this situation, I'll just describe this because we have a woman that's stealing and they're looking for a store clerk to see whether the store clerk is watching her. We don't know it. Of course, this picture don't really tell whether she's rich or she's poor. But if she was poor, is it okay for her to steal? It's not, because there's no exception to this rule. What should she have done?
Ask.
She should ask. Okay. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Okay. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. What does the word neighbor mean? In Israel, neighbor is in reference to family. But see, it was also a mixed multitude that came out with the children of Israel. So it was Gentiles and foreigners that lived amongst them as well. Remember that we were supposed to treat them like our brethren, right? So, yeah. It's one manner of law. Let me see something real quick. There's one manner of law for all of Israel, even the strangers that's living amongst them. So I'm going to read this. This is Leviticus 19 and verse 33. It says, and when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, do not oppress him. Let the stranger who dwells among you be to you as the native among you. So the stranger would be the foreigner. All right. Let him be as the native among you. All right. Meaning, even though he's not Israel, treat him as if he were. And why? It says, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And that's the reason, because we was the strangers in Egypt. So when we were strangers in Egypt, because we were strangers in Egypt, we know how it feels to be a stranger. And when we were strangers, we got mistreated, right? But now that we in our own land, we don't do after the customs of the heathen and mistreat a foreigner. All right, we treat them like they are brothers or they are sisters. That's how we do that, okay? And in regards to bearing false witness, so you have a scenario here where a man has hit a ball through the owner of the house's window, and he's blaming it on this other guy, right? One of the main commandments is not to bear false witness, not to lie, because they brought certain penalties about when people when you some penalties. Let me correct myself. When some penalties happened, when some people transgressed the laws, what happened was you will have people to lie and try to get somebody killed, right? And say if they went through with that, they can potentially get somebody put to death. All right, they can get somebody put to death. Let me see something real quick. This is Deuteronomy. This is Deuteronomy 19 and 15, right? So Deuteronomy 19 and 15, you're talking about bearing false witness. It says, one witness does not rise up against a man concerning any wickedness or any sin that he commits. So it's got to be more than one witness, okay? At the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses, a matter is established. So at the mouth of 2 or more witnesses. All right. So it's always got to be at least 2 people that saw a matter or that can give an account of somebody committing a sin. I can't just say, Daquan, you committed adultery and be the only one saying you committed adultery. You know, it's got to be somebody else that could say it, even if it's not clear enough to where that one person, that other witness saw it directly. Maybe they just may have some understanding in the law and we describe in a situation to them. You know what I mean? It has to be a witness, you know, or something like that. They can be a witness of a different sort, but yet and still they can be a witness. So like, say if I saw you commit adultery and I saw you and another person committing adultery, right? I saw you laying with another man's wife or something like that. And I hope this don't ever happen. But then you have another person that's a witness say, well, I did see that man's wife leaving from his tent. So the other witness saw the woman leaving from your tent. You see what I'm saying? But didn't actually see her committing adultery, but I saw the adultery. But now you still have 2 witnesses. You see that? Because you saw the woman leaving, but then I'm the main witness because I actually saw the adultery taking place. You see that? So that would still be 2 witnesses though, because they saw the woman leaving after the adultery was committed. You see that? So that would still be committing adultery. Okay. So then it says, I'm going to finish reading this because we're still talking about adultery. When a malicious witness rises up, that means a witness that's unrighteous, that false witness, rises up against any man to accuse him of turning aside, that means committing a sin, then both men who have the dispute shall stand before Yahuwah, before the Kohanim, which is the priests, and the judges who serve in those days. And the judges shall diligently search and see if the witness is a false witness who has falsely accused his brother. So they should diligently search. That means they're going to ask questions. Ask him questions, ask around, right? Who has falsely accused his brother. Then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. And let the rest hear and revere, and never again do this evil matter in your midst. And let your eye not pardon, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and hand for hand, foot for foot. Now, even though we can't do that right now, in the land of Israel, when they was living in the land, they did this. Okay, so they did this. They will put a false witness to death because he thought to get somebody else put to death. You see that? All right, so it's got to be, now how many witnesses, when we're talking about bearing false witness, how many witnesses do it have to be?
It could be like 3 or
2 or more. It can be 2 or more witnesses. 2 or more witnesses. Okay? 2 or more witnesses. See, it can be 3 witnesses, but you want to have 2 or more witnesses. It's best to have at least 2. And like I said, sometimes like the second witness doesn't necessarily have to be the person that directly seen an act. Like if you're saying somebody committed adultery, I may be the one seeing it in seeing the act happen directly, but you might have seen the woman leaving the tent after the act was committed. Then what? So she can't say that she wasn't in this person's tent, and now I seen it directly. That's 2 witnesses right there. Right? All right, so, all right, let's go to the last one. You shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. You shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. What does it mean to covet?
to lust after someone's possession.
To lust after somebody's possessions, right? So you're lusting after somebody's possessions to the point where you don't have control and you're going to go and make a plan to steal. So you coveting and you're going to go make a plan to steal, all right? Now, if you lusting after somebody's possessions, you should definitely check yourself and make sure that you remember that these things are displeasing to the Most High, right? This woman is lusting after her possessions. Now remember, that word neighbor also means, it's talking about family, right? Even with a stranger, you're not supposed to lust after his possessions to the point where it'll lead you to want to steal or kill him or her to take their possessions. All right, so we got to keep ourselves in control, right? Because the lust is going to be in our hearts, but we don't have to follow it. All right, and I want to read something real quick. Let me see. Let me see. Psalm 68. No, Psalm 66, I'm sorry. Psalm 66. In verse 18, it says, if I have seen wickedness in my heart, Yahuwah would not hear. If I have seen wickedness in my heart, Yahuwah would not hear. So the key is to always do the best you can to keep a pure heart. If an evil desire to take your neighbor's possession is in your heart, probably need to pray about it. All right? Psalm 66 and verse 18. Okay? All right. All right, so that's the 10 Commandments. Now we're going to go into today's lesson. Still talking about the kings. All right, we're still talking about the kings. Hey, shalom, shalom. Still talking about the kings. And we're going into King Omri. All right, going into King Omri. All right. Yeah, it's over here. Going into King Omri. Okay. All right. King Omri was not a righteous king. He was not a righteous king. At this time where he became king, we talked about King Zimri 2 weeks ago. All right, we talked about King Zimri 2 weeks ago. Do you remember anything about King Zimri? Hey, how you doing? You all right? Yeah. He was king in the northern. Yeah. Yeah. He sure was. Now he was a king in the north. Okay. That's all you remember about King Zimri? Okay. Well, you have to remember, of course, you know, most of the northern kingdom kings was evil, right? So we know that King Zimri ultimately he ended up getting killed because of his wickedness. All right, so we're going to open up to First Kings 16. First Kings 16 and verse 16. Talking about King Omri, okay? All right, so 1 Kings 16 and verse 16. And it says, and the people that were encamped heard say, Zimri hath conspired and hath also slain the king. Wherefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host, king over Israel that day in the camp. So they're making King Omri the king over King Zimri, right? And the people that were, verse 16, it says, and the people that were encamped heard say, Zimri hath conspired. That means he have came together with a plan and hath also slain the king that was over him, right? He had conspired to kill that king, right? And that was King Elah that he killed. Zimri killed King Elah, right? You got to hold it down, brother. Hey, you got to hold it down. Tell him, close that door over there. Yeah, it's all right. Just close the door because I know they outside. All right. So yeah. So he killed King Eli, right? So let's keep reading. So Zimri killed King Eli, and the people heard about it, and they made King Omri the king. Okay? Wherefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host, king over Israel that day in the camp. And Omri went up from Gibbethon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to pass, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the palace of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire and died. So he killed himself. He burnt the king's house over himself and he died. All right, so he committed like suicide. For his sins which he sinned in doing evil in the sight of Yahuwah and walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he did to make Israel to sin. Now, and let me go down to verse 21. Then were the people of Israel divided into two parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. So the northern kingdom was split at this time. So some of the people followed King Omri, some of them followed King Tibni, right? So it's going to be some strife between them two. They don't get along at this point because they fighting for power, okay? Verse 21. Verse 23. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, began Omri to reign over Israel 12 years. 6 years reigned he in Tirzah, and he bought the hill Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built after Shemer, owner of the hill, Samaria. So the hill Samaria came from King Omri buying the hill of Shemer. He named it after Shemer. All right, Shemer was the owner of the hill. Omri bought it and named it after him and called it Samaria. So for a while, Samaria, the hill, that area was not always an area that was known to Israel. It was just, it existed amongst northern Israel, but it wasn't a land that was always known to the Israelites or respected as a land in the northern kingdom. But it ended up getting bought by King Omri. He was responsible for this. King Omri is responsible for buying this land from Shemer, okay? Verse 25, but Omri wrought evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, and did worse than all that were before him. For he walked in all the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and in his sin wherewith he made Israel to sin, to provoke Yahuwah Elohim of Israel to anger with their vanities. Now, verse 28. So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab his son reigned in his stead. Right? So Omri slept with his fathers. All right? So it says, verse 26, for he walked in all the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. You remember King Jeroboam?
He was a northern king, and he was wicked to marry 7,000 wives.
Nope. No, sir. No, sir. You're thinking about Solomon, and even that's wrong. So no, Solomon married one. He had 700 wives and princesses and 300 concubines. You had Jeroboam. Remember, Jeroboam was a servant to Solomon, but then once Solomon started to sin, the Most High chose Jeroboam as the first king of the northern kingdom. Remember, he split the kingdom. The Most High chose him to, reign over the northern kingdom tribes, the 10 tribes of Israel. But Jeroboam became a sinner, and he caused the children of Israel to start committing idolatry. Okay? So once he started to cause the children of Israel to commit idolatry, then the Most High was displeased with him as well. You see that? The Most High was displeased with him as well. And then he ultimately ended up getting killed because of his unrighteousness. He got killed by King Baasha. Remember King Baasha?
He was a servant with Ashi.
Nope. He became a Northern Kingdom Israelite. He was a Northern. Now he didn't become one. He was a Northern Kingdom. He was a Northern Kingdom king, and the Most High appeared to him and told him to wipe out Jeroboam because Jeroboam was a sinner. You see that? So the Northern Kingdom had a long list of unrighteous kings. All right. Whenever the Most High was displeased with them, he would wipe them out, or he would have something done to them, or something would happen to them where they would end up dying unrighteously because none of them was righteous. All right. And in the situation with Omri, even though he had overtaken and took the position that he had, he still wrought evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to verse 25. And it says, and did worse than all that were before him. So he did worse than all that were before him. He did worse than Jeroboam. It says, for he walked in the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and in his sin, wherewith he made Israel to sin. So not only did he do everything that Jeroboam did, there was other things he did that was unrighteous in the eyes of Yahuwah, making him the most unrighteous king. Right? Wherewith he made Israel to sin, to provoke Yahuwah Elohim of Israel to anger with their vanities. See that? And so, like I said, what is Omri responsible for? Well, doing his own will, yes, he was definitely responsible. But remember, he bought Samaria. That was the one good thing that he did, was buying Samaria. He bought the hill of Shemer and turned it into Samaria. He named it after Shemer, the man he bought it from. Okay? Right? So let me go back to verse 24, and then we're going to wrap it up. And he bought, this is 1 Kings 16, verse 24, and he bought the hill Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built after the name of Shemer, owner of the hill. So Shemer was the owner of the hill, and he called it Samaria. And if you read that in the Hebrew, it's called Shamaron. Okay, Shamaron. Okay, so directly named after Shemer. It's called Shamaron. That's the name of the hill. That's the name of Samaria. Okay. All right, and we're going to wrap it up there. Next week, we'll talk about King Ahab, which that'll take a little bit longer than most kings because he have a lot more history recorded in the book of Kings. I might actually focus on the southern kingdom next week. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out by next week. I hope that you all are having a blessed Sabbath. Hope to see you all in here today for praise and worship, followed by today's main lesson. All right, we'll be starting up soon. Shabbat Shalom.